This is our final project on momentum in the NCAA tournament by Danny Kipnis and Lo Chapman. So what we wanted to see was whether or not the results of a conference tournament affect how well a team does in the NCAA tournament. So we wanted to see if like a team that won their conference goes further in the NCAA than a team that came in second in their conference. And this could be relevant because if you're predicting NCAA brackets, this could help you make money later on if you bet on it.
Our initial prediction was that if a team won their conference tournament, they would go farther than the NCAA tournament. We believe this because if a team won their conference tournament, they would have momentum and be hot and going into the tournament and then continue to play well into the NCAA tournament. So we collected our data using Wikipedia, and we looked at the conferences, the 6 biggest conferences, which are the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, the Big East, the Big 12, and the Pac-12. And we used 9 random years starting in 1990. We started in 1997, and we started in this year because this is the year in which the Big 12 started playing tournaments. So, all right.
So the way that we did it is we recorded the amount of NCAA tournament games won by the winners and runner-ups of each of the 6 conferences, and we got this data using Wikipedia, and then this allowed us to compare the success of the teams in the NCAA tournament versus how well they did in their conference. So the first statistical method that we did was a chi-squared goodness of fit test, and basically that's just the observed value minus the expected value squared all over the expected value. So this basically just tells us like how many games a team is expected to win based on how many were won by the conference winners. So our null hypothesis in this was that there's no difference won in the NCAA tournament by conference champs and runner-ups. Our alternate would be that conference champs would win more games in the NCAA tournament than conference runner-ups. So a problem that we found with this was after plugging in all of our data, we still had under 80% of our counts were under 5, which means that the chi-squared test isn't valid. So to get around this, we combined the counts from the last 2 games in the tournament, since these were the smallest value or chi-squared values. So this allowed us to get our counts over 5. So here's our mini tab output. So you can see that we combined the 5th and 6th game scores for both the runner-ups and the conference tournament champions. So that way our counts will be over 80%. So after doing this, we get a chi-squared value of 15.682 and a p-value of basically 0, which is under our alpha of 0.05, so we reject our null hypothesis. So this means that there's like significant evidence that conference champions go further in the NCAA tournament than the conference runner-ups.
The second statistical method we used was a 2-sample t-test for the difference in means in NCAA tournament games won between the conference champions and the conference runner-ups. So in order to complete a 2-sample t-test, you need to fulfill certain requirements. So our first requirement is that for a normal sampling distribution, you need a greater than 30 samples, and we got 53 games, so we completed that. And we used a random sample of teams. As we mentioned before, that we use random years, and although it was selected conferences, we thought this would improve our results. And we also need to fill the 10% threshold to make the sample independent, and we did this because there have been more than 530 games played in the NCAA tournament. So we ran our data and found that the t-value was 3.67 and the p-value was nearly 0 again. And since our null hypothesis was that the mean number of games won by the conference champs and the runner-ups in the NCAA tournament was the same, we can then conclude that we can reject the null and say that the mean number of games won by the conference champions is more than that of the runner-ups. And this is our data, which clearly shows that the mean of the conference champions is greater. The mean of the conference champions is C3 and the runner-ups is C1. So, as I just said, since our p-value is very small, we reject the null hypothesis and conclude that the conference tournament winner goes farther in the NCAA tournament on average.
So after we saw the results from both of our tests, we found that teams who win their conference are more likely to win more games in the NCAA tournament as opposed to the runner-ups. This makes sense because teams who win their conferences are generally better teams than those who they beat in the tournament. So while our research isn't really like groundbreaking, it can help people make their brackets or help them predict them. So it essentially tells us that like upsets are pretty fun, but they're gonna decrease your odds of doing well. And if someone wanted to continue our research, we would recommend that they use more years of data, along with looking at more than just the top 2 teams in the tournament, maybe like the top four.
Thank you.